to this week's MTD podcast. I'm Giovanni Albanese, hosting today's show, a passionate engineer and a proud member of the MTD team. Today's podcast, keeping the machine tool industry moving. I have the pleasure today to be at Flagg Projects headquarters, and I'm joined by Mark Marshall, who's the sales director and a member of the board. This is a really interesting podcast, and thank you very much for having the MTD team on site today, Mark.
No problem at all. You're very much welcome, and we're looking forward to doing some quite positive work with you guys.
Well, it's brilliant. I think that what all of our customers have in common is they all have a factory, and from time to time they'll buy a new machine or sell an old machine or even move from one factory to another. And this is where you really can help. But before we get into the importance of Flagg projects and what you can actually do for businesses in our industry, can you firstly tell our audience a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you started at Flagg, and also the history of Flagg, please?
Yeah, no problem. So I left school pretty much as soon as I could leave school. All I wanted to do was work in an office. So I didn't have any sort of grand plans of, what I wanted to do or where I wanted to be. But I got very fortunate. So my first job was working for a business in High Wycombe called Cavewood. It was fantastic because they very much liked investing in young people. It was a family business. It was a bigger family business than Flagg's, but we had lots of drivers and lots of characters, and it was just a great place to be and to learn. Cavewood Cavewood used to move all sorts of stuff around, so high value, dangerous good, all sorts of stuff. But they also had a machinery division as well, so they would organise collections from the OEM's factories across Europe. But then we had vehicles and guys in the UK then that would meet those lorries, offload them, and do the stuff that Flagg's do now. Flagg's then bought that division. So at the time, I didn't move straight away. My boss at the time came to Flagg's. A couple of the drivers came to Flagg's and some of the lorries. In fact, a couple of the guys are still here actually from back then as well. So I carried on at Cavewood for another sort of 5 or 6 years. And then I moved across to Flagg's. I started basically as a transport manager. So I would be organising where the guys were going on a day-to-day and sort of making sure they knew what they were doing. And then I've just sort of worked my way through the business, really. So I've been fortunate to work with Jason Flagg. I've learned loads off Jason about obviously being involved in running the business. So, yeah, that's kind of sort of how I've ended up at Flagg's.
How long have you been working at Flagg, Mark?
I think it's 23 years.
23
now.
years,
So, yeah,
wow.
I've only had 2 jobs. So I was at Cavewood for 10 or 15 years, I suppose. And then,
Well, you don't look that old. You don't look that old. Now, Flagg projects, I mean, before we start focusing on the machine tool industry and how you can help that particular industry, can you tell us about how the business originated and a little bit more? You mentioned Jason Flagg, and a little bit about him and a little bit more detail about the business and what you actually do. It's a lot more than actually meets the eye.
Yeah, so we started off really as a transport business. So the business was started by Jason's stepdad, and it was literally just a man and a lorry, basically. But I think they saw a bit of a niche in the market, so they started delivering, we're talking about second-hand lorries and, not particularly nice, high-end equipment. But they saw a bit of a niche in moving sort of machinery parts. And like I say, a bit of a niche really. It wasn't sort of your typical sort of general haulage. And they basically grew the business where people could see the value. So the service they got, they quite enjoyed. And then we started moving some of the more complex and newer machines. Then they bought more lorries and obviously had more employees. So, in fact, John Petch was Flagg's first ever employee. He's still here.
Fantastic.
Obviously, he's a bit more longer in the tooth now, but he's very much an ambassador for this company. Jason Flagg is obviously still here. Jay was a driver to begin with, and then has obviously moved into the MD role as sort of other people have moved on. So we've made ourselves a bit of a niche, I suppose, for moving machines and sort of sometimes stuff other people don't really want to move.
I mean, the business. I mean, we met you at the Fanuc Open House, and now you're a proud sponsors of the MTD channel, which is excellent, and we'll be doing a lot more work together in the months and the years to come. But in regards, you mentioned lorries, you mentioned the engineering side of the business too. Jason's quite a keen engineer himself, and he works on kind of new innovative solutions for his trucks. How many trucks do you have? And tell us about some of these innovative solutions that you supply.
Yeah, so Jason's always looking at finding different ways to do things better. So whether that be some safer, more efficient, I guess. So, and there are always products out there. So we've always run hired vehicles. We have, I think it's 5 hired vehicles now on the fleet. Everything from like a sort of 2-ton capacity lift right up to a 30-ton capacity lift on a HIAB. We then run Arctic vehicles, rigid vehicles. So we've got a mixture of different vehicles, but everything really is designed to carry machines. So Jay will spend a lot of time looking at what the customer needs, and obviously trying to fit a vehicle, design a vehicle which will kind of cover lots of different sort of roles, but it can be used on different types of work as well. So we don't just have a lorry that's good for one type of machine. We try and design something that's good for a range of different machines.
Application specific.
Yeah, there's a good word. But then we obviously, as the business has grown as well, then we've managed to invest in other sort of types of lifting equipment. So we have hoist forklifts. So these are big, heavy. They're very compact forklifts, but these are forklifts that can lift sort of 20 odd tons. We have hydraulic gantry systems. The biggest one we've got lifts 125 tons.
Wow.
We've got more kit on the way as well. So we've got a new piece of kit which is coming. I think it's due to be collected from America. So we'll be launching. We'll be giving some information on that as well. So keep an eye on the website. We'll be launching some information on that as well. So yeah, Jay's always keen to try and invest in the best kit we can, and obviously that goes for the lorries as well, as you saw in the Swarf and Chips.
No, I mean, yeah, definitely watch the Swarf and Chip show if you haven't already. It's on the MTDCNC website, and you can find it on YouTube. Now, you mentioned your largest lifting equipment or capacity is 125 tons. Mm-hmm. What's the actual heaviest lift you have actually performed?
I think the heaviest single piece we lifted was a part for an injection moulding machine, which would have been about 2 years ago. Was about 95 tons, I think it was. So on that particular job, it was involving lifting the machine off of transport that had come from China, and then obviously unpacking it and getting it ready to go into the factory. So yeah, that would be. I mean, it wasn't massively big. It was, probably the size of a car sort of thing, but obviously very dense. So it wasn't particularly difficult to lift. It was just obviously it's very, very heavy. So we had to make sure we had the right equipment on it.
Now, you're working with some large companies, some well-known names within our industry, Aston Martin, for an example. You're actually doing a complete factory move for them, Siemens, and some other big names within our industry, OEM. So there may be a misconception that you just move one machine from one destination to another, but that is not the case. Can you tell us a little bit more? I know it's a high-profile company, and you might be limited on what you can and can't tell us. But can you tell us a little bit more, for example, about the Aston Martin project and what that actually entails from the planning of when the inquiry comes into the delivery?
Yeah, so we've worked with Aston Martin. I mean, obviously they've been called different things over the years. They were Force India and some other different names. But we've built a good relationship with the guys that work in the factory up at Silverstone. I think they've also got a place in Brackley. So we've been in and out of that factory for over the last sort of 10 or 15 years. But normally that would involve putting a new machine in, or moving some machines around for them within the factory, or sometimes they want to move machines between the factories. So we've got a good working relationship with them. And they've decided to obviously now build a new facility up at Silverstone. They needed to get moved across from one site to the other. So naturally they came to us, and we were happy to work with them. So yeah, it's been an interesting project. It's obviously they're doing very well at the moment as well, within the F1 championship. So I think that's very much their priority. So obviously they need to keep the F1 team with all the, they don't need the distraction of the move. They want to be able to concentrate on what's important to them, which is obviously keeping that car at the front of the grid.
Well, in my opinion, the most precious commodity is that we've all got is time, especially in the Formula One industry.
Yeah.
That's it. That's even more important and critical. But in the machine tool industry as well, if you've gone to it and placed a big investment in a new machine tool, you've placed that investment because you need to produce more work. You need to make more parts, and you'll have customers waiting for them parts, and time is effectively money, but also the machine tool has got a significant value. From, machine tools can range from £50,000 up to £1 million. Now these are precious pieces of kit that need to be handled with care. Can you tell us a little bit more about the importance of moving a machine tool and a little bit more about the specialist knowledge that you guys have?
Yeah, I mean, we're very fortunate to have some of the guys we've got working. A lot of the guys, even on the board, have hands-on experience and knowledge, and we've also got some guys that have been here 20 plus years, so no machine's really the same, I suppose I would say. And obviously in the UK, no factory's really the same. We work in places like Aston Martin, F1 factories, but we also work in very small sort of machine shops as well, so they are very different. And obviously there's a bit of a different etiquette as well around working in different types of environment. But the principles are the same, really. You want to be able to get this machine moved. Firstly, it's got to be done safely. And we also want to understand from the sort of customer's point of view, what are you trying to achieve here? I think understanding how you sort of fit into the bigger picture sometimes helps. And obviously if you share that information with the guys that are actually doing the work for us, they understand obviously how critical it is to get the machine not just done safely, on time, no damage, because obviously damage means A, it's obviously a cost, but B, you could also potentially then not have that machine running as well. So, and that's everybody's kind of worst nightmare really, is that we end up with a machine that's not able to function for the customer. So that's very rare that's happened in the time that I've been at Flagg's. But that's obviously our ultimate aim, is to be as less of a headache, I suppose. We want to get in, get the job done, and people to not really notice we're even there sometimes.
What's really stood out for me, even before today, when I first met yourself and Jason, and you were telling me about your business, one, I learned a lot, and I learned a lot of things that I didn't know. But secondly, your attention to detail and the customer service aspect and how important this side of the business is to you really stood out to me a lot. I'm assuming that off the back of that customer service and that exceptional service that you provide, that you get a lot of referrals, you get a lot of repeat business. Is that the case?
Yeah, I mean the business is obviously is kind of split into three kind of, we're one company, but we have three sort of divisions, if you like. So transport division is basically customers that we work for on a day-to-day. So there will be repeat customers that have, so typically OEMs. So we might do 3 or 4 machines a week for them sort of people, really. Projects is more large factory moves or big machine installations. So when we do a lot of work in cardboard packaging factories, so some of these machines can take several weeks to install. And often we've got to take a machine out before the new one goes in. So we can have guys on site for 2 or 3 weeks helping to dismantle or install a machine. And then we obviously have the medical division as well, which is our newest division. And this involves obviously working in hospitals and medical settings, installing X-ray systems, MRIs, CT scanners.
Tell me a little bit more about the medical work that you do. I mean, it's quite interesting and it blew me away a little bit. Tell me what you can anyway that we can say on this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, it's very different, I suppose, to what we've been used to in terms of the environments that we work in and the etiquette that goes around it, I guess. So again, we're very lucky that we have 3 or 4 guys here that have worked in that industry for a long time. So there's nothing really they haven't seen or done, and they know a lot of because obviously a lot of the hospitals aren't really designed for large pieces of kit to go in and out. So there's always a challenge of one degree or another, and because of these guys obviously used to being in different hospitals, they know pretty much, if you say there's a machine going in or an MRI going into Cambridge Hospital, they'll remember last time, and so that, you can't beat that sort of experience, I guess. But yeah, it's very different because it's planned to the nth degree. A lot of the work's over weekends as well, so obviously that creates some challenges with staffing as well. But yeah, it's different to the typical work that we do in the transport and projects, just because there's a lot more planning that goes into it.
You mentioned experience. I mean, that's key, and the specialised knowledge. And we also mentioned before the podcast started about the skills gap and trying to get skilled employees. We incur the same problems within our industry, and I think it's becoming something that's a problem generally. Tell us how you overcome issues such as this.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things obviously we've struggled with over the last few years has been driver shortages as well. So we went through a bit of a period, because obviously for a lot of our drivers aren't just drivers. They get involved in the installation, they get involved in helping the crew, obviously getting the machine in and out. So it's not just a driving job. So, and driving jobs are quite different, I suppose, because people, I suppose it's a bit of a trade-off. Some people just want to earn the money. Some people want to do something that's a bit more interesting, I guess. So attracting drivers has been quite difficult. And obviously we've had to pay more salary to retain drivers and attract new ones. But in regard to sort of generally sort of getting more people to do this kind of work, Jason's always liked to take, he came out of school with, like myself, I suppose, with nothing. We didn't come out with loads of GCSEs and opportunities and stuff, but you work hard, stick at something. So we like to take the kids that come out of school that haven't got, academically aren't massively blessed, but they will work hard, and if you invest the time into them, you'll get the commitment back from them. So we like to take, and people that tend to join, they tend to enjoy the work because it's very different. So you're not really in the same place too often. You're doing different things every day. So that's why it becomes more appealing, I suppose.
You've certainly got a great philosophy here at Flagg. It stands out from talking to you beforehand. From previous meetings that we've had, it really does stand out. I think that also you're very proactive as a business. I mean, for example, we're working together. You're working together with MTD. Tell us about your marketing strategy and about really the education that you want to kind of tell our audience about what actually goes into the work and the projects that you're involved with.
Yeah, no problem. So I suppose we've been very fortunate over the years that we've never really had to invest a lot in sales and marketing, and we've been very lucky to have quite a loyal group of customers that will use us time and time again, because obviously they've learned to trust us, I guess. And indirectly, some of those obviously people that are selling machines indirectly are kind of sort of our sales team, I suppose. So if they sell a new machine, obviously then the chances are we're going to get an order for delivering that. So they're kind of indirectly our sales team as well. But obviously when we're on the project sort of side of things, that's a lot more, people don't move factories every day. So we spend a lot, I suppose we put more energy into our SEO and stuff on the website to try and attract projects, leads, I suppose. But yeah, sort of marketing wise, we've only ever really sort of scratched the surface, I guess, which is why it's interesting opportunity to do some work with you guys, because it puts us in front of some people that maybe don't sort of understand who we are or how we do things. And that's what we're looking to do is to sort of make or bring it to attention to people. So sometimes how we can differentiate from people they're using at the moment, maybe, or
Well, we'll be seeing a lot more of you guys like I mentioned earlier, over the coming months and years to come, and we'll be going to follow you on actual installations, real life installations from start to finish, which I'm actually really looking forward to actually be able to see what it actually entails. You are going to be doing a show in September at the NEC. How's that going? How's the planning for that show going?
Yeah, so Jay decided he wanted to do Interplast this year. So obviously we've got some experience of trade shows because obviously we often get asked to get the machines to the shows for the customers, and in the past obviously if they used to sell the machines off the stands, sometimes we'd actually pick the machines up off the stand and take them straight to the customer. Doesn't seem to happen that way so much these days. I think obviously that the world has changed, but so Jay's decided he wants to do Interplast this year. Again more sort of brand awareness I suppose, and we've got some customers already in that sector, so it's an opportunity for us to showcase again and educate people on who we are, how we approach things. Might be a little bit different to makes people a bit more aware of some of the things they maybe need to be careful of when they're deciding to move some machines around. So it's going to be interesting, but it's our first show as well, so it's a very, very steep learning curve.
Good luck with that one.
Yeah, I need it.
Final question from me, really. What value would you put on peace of mind? I mean, ultimately, when you're investing in a brand new machine tool and you need it to be delivered from one place to another safely and on time, or you're moving a complete factory from one location to another, how important is peace of mind?
Well, obviously it's moving stressful. We've all done the moving house sort of thing, but I can imagine if you're responsible for moving a factory, or even if you're just moving a tool shop around, you want to be able to, you obviously got this idea in your head of how you want it to look and how you want it to be. Obviously the reality of that can be quite daunting, I suppose, if you don't really know exactly what you're doing. We've done it time and time and time again for hundreds of customers over the years, and obviously our priority is to make sure if we want the job to go well, because obviously that means that you get your tool shop running back how you expect it to be. It looks how you expect it to be. It's important, but I think it's also important to understand what the customer actually wants to achieve as well. So it's not just about what happens on the day as well. The planning that goes into it, how you communicate with the customer. You try and do as much for them as you can, and obviously we're also very good at trying to point out things as well. So we often go to a site survey, for example, and we'll say, well, obviously you're going to have to make sure, so we'll give them a list of pre-works that need to be done before we get there. I think that gives you the peace of mind that it's a joint effort really. We want to work with you to get the best result, and everything to sort of be done on time and obviously on budget as well. So
no, Mark, it's been brilliant to be talking to you and to have a greater insight into what it entails to move machine tools and to move a complete factory from one location to another. There's definitely more than meets the eye. As mentioned previously, make sure to watch the Swarf and Chip show that we've previously produced, and that will show you the capabilities that they have here on site at Flagg Projects, and we'll be looking to do a real life case study in the coming months. So if you're looking for a partner that you can trust when moving a machine tool or a factory, look no further than Flagg Projects in Aylesbury. Thank you so much for your time, Mark. But until next time, the MTD Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the MTD Podcast. If you found value in this episode, please subscribe and leave a rating and review. Find more episodes on mtdcnc.com.